Good morning and welcome to Daylight Church Online. We're just so thankful that you're joining us this morning and hope that you have a great experience. We want to let you know that if you'll go to mydaylightchurch.com, there's a card there that says Online Church. And on the Online Church card, it'll tell you everything you need to know about being a part of our online church community, how you can get involved in small groups, how you can give financially, how you can be involved in the service projects that we do. So even if you're in Kansas or Cambodia, you can sure join us and be a part of our church. We'd like you to check it out there and introduce yourself. So go to mydaylightchurch.com and check out the online church card. Thanks. I'm a little embarrassed to put this slide on the screen because it looks so much like Valentine's Day. And when I first put it up there, it didn't intend to at all. But then I kept looking at it and thinking, that's just really cheesy and awful. And by the time I got my sermon done, I was just too tired to fix it. And so it's not Valentine's Day. And we're going to talk about getting your heart saved. And there's this famous scene from The Princess Bride where one character keeps saying inconceivable. And another character says to him, yeah, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. And I think the church a lot of times can be guilty of that with the word saved. You hear people use the expression, I got saved at such and such time. And even by narrowing it down to a time, in my opinion, it kind of misses the grand scale of what it means to be saved. And so I want to talk about how to get your heart saved, but it doesn't mean what you think it means at all. There's this passage in John chapter 3 where it says, God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. So Jesus, the work of Jesus and why Jesus came to the world was partially wrapped up in this word saved, which in English, a lot of times in the modern church, means something along the lines of, I was bad, and now I'm good. I have been saved. Or I did bad things, and God forgive me for the bad things, and therefore I have been saved. Or I stopped my wicked ways and started doing godly ways, and now I'm going to heaven. And a lot of times that's kind of the end-all, be-all line of what it means to be saved is, am I going to heaven or am I not? It's fire insurance, basically. And this word in the Greek is sothi. And sothi is far, far more encompassing than this. It means something much grander than just fire insurance. The eternity with God thing is a huge part of what Scripture has to say, but it's not the only part. And it's certainly not the only part of what this word means. So when we quote, get saved, it essentially means soundness in every area. It means every area of our life starts to come under the banner of God and starts to flourish and thrive. And the kingdom of God comes. And so the kingdom of God is a kingdom of peace and joy and hope and love and soundness and so forth, self-control. And so we've started this series about self-care and trying to define what self-care is. And is self-care just, I go get a mani-pedi when I need it, I just go get Indian food when I need it, I binge watch Netflix when I need it, or is there something more to how a Christian would view the word self-care, the hashtag self-care? There's this passage in Mark where a man, his daughter is very sick and dying, and he says, please come to Jesus. He says, put your hands on her so that she will be saved and live. And so this same word applies to like a physical healing in this situation. There's other passages where the apostles are all on a boat together and this terrible storm comes and they call out to Jesus, save us, sozo us, we are perishing. And so in this particular case, it means rescue us, something calamitous is happening. And so it's not just the eternity thing. It's not just whether you go to heaven or hell. It has to do with the here and now as well. And then, of course, 1 Corinthians 6 says this. It says, do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. There's something to glorifying God with your body, and we'll talk in a moment about the heresy of dualism and what it means to be an embodied spirit or embodied soul. And, Jesus said to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And what does it mean to love God with your strength? And so this salvation thing goes far beyond my sins are covered, my sins are forgiven, I'm going to heaven. It goes into, can God invade every part of my life? And that would be optimizing yourself in some sense. It would be self-care, is to allow God to do the kind of things that God wants to do in your life. The Proverbs are written for wisdom, and it says this, my son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words, for they are life to those who find them and health to one's whole body. So as we talk about self-care as a pastor, obviously, I have questions about my responsibility here because we're going to act as kind of a personal trainer and nutritionist today. And does that fall under the realm of what it means to be a pastor? Like, what is my job? Is my job just to get you guys saved, meaning you don't go to hell, you go to heaven? Or does it mean something much deeper than that? And there's this passage in Ephesians that talks specifically about what the role of a pastor is, and it's talking specifically about those who are in kind of professional ministry or those who have given their lives to service to God. And it says that they do it in order to prepare God's people for works of service. So in some sense, if you want to look at the scriptures and say, what is the role of a pastor? Like, why would I get up here on a Sunday morning? Why have the small groups? Why do the service projects and so forth? This is a summary of what I'm supposed to do. Is I'm supposed to prepare you guys, God's people, for acts of service. And I think it's fair to say that the healthier you are, the more equipped you are to perform acts of service. It's hard to give yourself when you feel lousy. It's if you're sick, if you're down physically, if you're crushed by physical disability, if you're crushed by obesity, if you've got headaches all the time, if you just feel weak and ill-equipped to get up and get out of bed of a morning, if a pastor can help you in those areas, it seems like it would be a good service for the pastor to do. So we're going to talk about self-care today, and we're going to talk specifically about the body, but I want to quote a friend of mine who said this. He said, our earthly bodies are not permanent. We should not get so enamored with our bodies that we forget that reality. Now, there's this heresy called dualism, and dualism has been pretty common, and you hear it espoused in like subtle forms periodically even today, but it's this idea that there's the spiritual and there's the physical. There's what is made up of matter, and then there's what is made up of spirit. And the dualist will say that the matter doesn't matter, that the spirit is all that matters, that the spirit is all that you should care about, that you should be a deeply spiritual person and reject all things physical. And it invades how you eat, it invades how you sleep, it invades how you have sex, it invades how you think about the physical body, exercise, and so forth. And historically, Christian theologians have recognized dualism as a heresy and that we are embodied spirits. And so even when we look at Jesus, God became man in the flesh, incarnate, in meat. And so you are a spiritual being that lives in a body. And there's great questions out there that Christian philosophers and theologians have argued back and forth about forever as to how separate are those things. Are they one, like a Trinitarian thing, or are they separate? When you die, does the body die and the spirit go elsewhere? Are you embodied after? And I'm not getting into all that stuff today. I'm just saying that if you want to serve people best, if you want to love God and love others the best you can, physical health is related to that. It's connected to that, and it's an important part of the Christian journey is that you take care of the temple that God has given you where it says his spirit lies. And so we're going to talk about self-care in the form of taking care of your physical body today. This is Sparks Hall in Murray, Kentucky, and this is where I almost flunked out of college. I was partying a lot. I was staying up late. I was playing volleyball and shooting pool and going to a fraternity house and drinking and showing up late for class and staying up till 4 in the morning and sleeping till 2 in the afternoon when I had 9 o'clock classes. And it was bad. It was ugly. And I had a 1.6 grade point average my first semester of college. And they said, I had a 1.3 grade point average my first year of college. So somebody whistles and then they whistle again. Ooh, it gets worse. They put me on academic probation. They said, if you don't get your GPA up, you're out. I elevated it from a 1.3 to like a 1.8 the next semester. I really doubled down. And I got that final warning. They said, this is it. If your GPA isn't a 2.4 or something like that by the end of next semester, you're done. And it was about that same time that I started falling in love with Jesus and started wanting Jesus to be a part of my life. And I had this thought. I don't remember why it was such an epiphany one day, but it was this idea that by skipping class, by staying up late, by partying and not doing some responsible things, by living like a child, I wasn't representing Jesus well. And so I started going to class. I mean, mind blown. Going to class helps your grades. It's shocking stuff. I started going to bed a little bit earlier. I started getting up a little bit earlier, and I started going to class. And I remember specifically making the decision that I was going to sit on the front row of all my classes. Because in the back row, you can sleep through class. In the back row, you can read a comic book or whatever it is you're doing while while the professor drones on and on, but in the front row you're seen. And somebody gave me a tip that if you really want to take your classes seriously, sit in the front row. So I did. The short of it is, I fell in love with Jesus, and then I was on the dean's list forever after. There was this transformation that happened in my studies. And it wasn't because now I'm going to heaven when before I was going to hell, which we can talk about that. Some of that's just off-base theology, in my opinion, anyway. But it was more like, I want Jesus to be everything. I want Jesus to be the center of my life. And somehow I knew that my academics were a part of that transition and that transformation. And so this salvation thing, this sozo thing, this sothi thing, invades every aspect of your life. And your physical body is part of it. And so today's sermon is titled, Don't Skip Leg Day, and Other Thoughts. The reason I bring up leg day is for those that lift weights, they recognize leg day is the worst day. My son, Siler, who's now 14, has started lifting weights with me now, and he bench presses and military presses and does the curls and the chin-ups and everything, and he kept giving me a hard time. He's saying, Dad, you're not doing your job. I'm not sore. And he is beast mode. I mean, seriously, the kid can do like 17 chin-ups in good form. It's just shocking. He's stronger than I am with some of these exercises, and I've been, like if you look on my app, I've worked out 853 times over the last X amount of years. I mean, as you can tell, I work out quite a bit. But it's just shocking how he picks up weights for the very first time and just crushes it. But I said, you've never been sore because you haven't experienced leg day. We did leg day last week for the very first time together, and he couldn't walk for 3 days. It was so fantastic. It was like he's trying to walk stairs and his legs are giving out, and he said, Dad, I can't move. And it was just wonderful because leg day is important. And I promise the sermon's not about leg day. It's about something else that's related to leg day. My buddy says legs feed the wolf. And so in the gym, the legs are important because the legs make up the largest muscular body, the largest muscular system of your body, your thighs in particular. If you can build up your muscles in your legs, you're building up a huge percentage of your body's musculature. And the interesting thing about that is leg day touches everything in your body because it releases human growth hormone that allows you to build other muscles. So leg day is the hardest and the most beneficial. And I say all that to say, if you think it's going to be easy, you're wrong. I've heard weightlifters say embrace the suck, which I don't think I'm supposed to say in church, but I've heard it said, and I feel comfortable quoting it here. But self-care is not inconsistent with sacrifice. It's not inconsistent with working hard. So there's something to be said about rest. There's something about taking a rest day in the gym, or from your walking, or from your hiking, or from your tennis, or your whatever, basketball, or whatever it is that you enjoy, swimming. There's also something to say about pushing yourself to new realms. There's also something to say about what we'll talk about in just a minute called progressive overload. It's working harder and faster, stronger. And so I want to encourage you to work hard on your physical body and be willing to make sacrifices. And that means, I've heard push-aways are the best exercise you can possibly do, and that means push away from the table. And so that it means sacrifice in your nutrition, it means sacrifice in the gym, it means sacrifice in getting out of bed when you don't feel like getting out of bed. And I want to say right off that I'm not this. I'm not a coach. I'm not a personal trainer. I'm not a doctor. But I kind of am. I sort of am. I'm not all those things, but I am a person that I think it's my job and my responsibility to try to push you in areas that will help you thrive and flourish. And working on your physical body and working on your nutrition and working on your rest are 3 areas that I think a pastor has some responsibility to encourage. With that said, some of the advice I say might be like the coconut oil in the skit, is I say, hey, you ought to do this with your carbs, or this with your diet, or this with your nutrition, or this with your exercise, and then 3 months from now, some new science will come out, and I'll look like a bozo, and I'm comfortable with that conversation. So I approach these things like, what would I tell my kids? And I'm gonna talk to you guys today about, like, what would I tell my kids about exercise, about nutrition, and about rest. And I want to start off by saying it's complicated. And if you want to know how complicated it is, just Google, is it okay to eat eggs? And read. Just read about cholesterol and eggs and whether you should eat the yolks or the egg whites only or not eat eggs at all. And read for 2 hours and see if you don't get your brain fried. Because there's so much science and smart people out there that are saying one thing and then a month later they're saying the next thing and then somebody else is saying the next thing. And it's complicated, it's not easy. But in some sense it kind of is too. And so the specifics of narrowing down like how you should eat or how you should exercise are always going to be complicated and difficult. But the idea that you should attempt to eat well, and the idea that you should move your body, and that you should get good sleep and good rest, these are incontrovertible. These are not questions. And so the particulars I may miss, the overarching view is what we're looking at is eat well, move your body, rest. And so that's what we're going to talk about for a little bit. For me, I've tried the keto diet a couple times. Keto is supposed to shred fat, and it does, boy. When I was on keto, I had some of you come to me and say, we're worried about you. You're getting too skinny too fast. I mean, it just melts off of me. But I also entered what I would describe as clinical depression, both times that I've tried keto. I just despaired of life. I got to have my carbs, apparently. And the nutritionist I was working with said, this is your body telling you about your body. And I have had to get off of the keto diet. I've tried it twice now, unsuccessfully, because of the depression and the anxiety and the mental difficulties. I have to have carbs, and I feel best, gosh, there's so much to say today. I feel best at about 2,500 calories with about 33% carbs, and I know that's not the point of the sermon today, except to say that my body reacts differently than your body. I think the Tiltons have been doing keto for quite some time, and you're having tremendous success with it and feel the best you've ever felt in your entire life. And so it's different for them than it is for me. It's different for you than it is for me. I can't have caffeine. I have horrible, horrible migraine headaches, and I'd be up until Thursday if I had caffeine today. I cannot do caffeine. I can't touch the stuff. My body doesn't allow it. Some of you can drink a pot of coffee about 9 o'clock at night and sleep like a baby. And some people in the gym encourage a healthy dose of caffeine before you hit the gym because of the boosted energy levels that allow you to work harder and allow the nutrition to take better effect. So there's not one rule for what your body does with caffeine. And I'm just saying it's complicated. So I don't want to stand up here and say this is what you ought to do, except to give some general guidelines and go from there. And start with, don't skip leg day. And what I mean by that is go back to this mentality of there's no easy path. You guys have seen the shaker weights, the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen, but on the advertisements, they make you think that if you'll do the shaker weight for 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week, you're just going to be ripped and shredded like Ronnie Coleman or somebody like that. Just not true. Or I'm going to do this sideways because it's so weird. The thing where you put it between your legs, and they act like you'll have the firmest button thighs in the world if you just do this for 10 minutes a day. So there's a lot of marketing, there's a lot of money grabbing that goes on in nutrition. And when I say don't skip leg day, what I mean is if anybody tries to sell you a package that says take this pill and you will be shredded, or use this device and you will be ripped, or send me $50 and I will give you your answer so that you only have to walk on a treadmill. Whatever the thing is that says it's easy and I'm making it easy, I'm not saying there aren't tools that you can use. I'm saying anybody that sells you that is selling you a load of goods. You got to hand wave. And just have this mentality of I'm going to have to work for it. There's no getting around it. And in my opinion, that's part of the grand design. It teaches you something existential in this pursuit of good health, is that I'm willing to pay the price. I'm willing to move forward when it's challenging. So start here. What I mean by start here is this is a journey and not a destination. Some of you have been lethargic for many years and eaten utter crap for many years, and it would be very, very challenging for you to start eating perfectly clean and start running 6 miles a day. It's just not the reality. It's not possible. But there is something you could do tomorrow when you wake up. There is something better you can eat tomorrow. And so I would encourage you, if you've been eating utter crap for forever, move to a 60-40 rule, where 60% of the time you eat stuff that you would consider healthy, and do some research to learn what is healthy. Because, for example, somebody hands you a yogurt. Well, yogurt is healthy. You read the label and the yogurt has 40 grams of added sugar to it. Not healthy. But you could easily think it's a granola bar. It's nature-y. It's not necessarily healthy. So do some research, but start to eat a little bit better and move from 60-40 to 70-30 to 80-20. In my opinion, I camp out somewhere in there, about 80-20 or 90-10 when it comes to nutrition and exercise. I'm not the ascetic that says, I will never, and I'm not the hedonist that would say, I embrace it all. There's some kind of balance in between, and search for that. And I also want to say that you're never too old to start. We've got people in the room that are close to 80 or so, and I said close to 80 or so. I was trying to be super careful there. I'm convinced that when I turn 82, I'm going to buy a Volkswagen convertible and keep the top down all the time with a loud sound system, and I'm going to pull into Krispy Kreme donuts every time the Hot Donuts Now sign is on. That's my plan. I'm thinking once I hit 82, the donuts are coming in, man. I've done my time at that point. But the reality is probably, I don't know this, but probably my loved ones would prefer that I make it to 90. Probably the people around me. Probably I could still have an impact at that point. So it's probably a bad plan. I read an article recently that says it compiled a study on human thriving, basically, is when are people existentially most satisfied, most beneficial to society, most beneficial to their families, most helpful, have the most wisdom. And the numbers were between 50 and 60 is the peak. 60 to 70 is higher than any other time of life. So the gap between 50 and 70 is the best human thriving gets. And so you might think, I'm 73 years old. I don't need to get in the gym. I think you're wrong, because we need you. We need you to live to 88 and give us your wisdom and allow us to experience your thriving in your ways. And so your family needs you, your church needs you, your community needs you, the world needs you. And it's important that you start to treat your body as such. Ripped ain't it. What I mean is body transformation. The goal of pursuing health from a Christian perspective, in my opinion, is not that you would have the six-pack of abs that you can show off on Instagram. Now I will say this, if you're eating healthy, if you're moving, your body will change, and that's a good thing. But it's also important that you don't allow your body to become an idol where it becomes something you kind of worship, and that's easy to do. I've talked to people that body transformation just became the entire thing. They had to get to 6% body fat at some point in their life, or they had to do this, or had to bench press so much. And there's a time and place for those goals, and there's a time and place for them to be laid down. And so I'm just saying, be careful with this thing. The goal is not for you to look great, but looking great is part of the package. It's also not that the scale says what you want it to say. There are a lot of people that are, I'm going to say it and just and I want to recognize out loud that it's kind of an uncomfortable phrase, but they're skinny fat is a phrase we use in the gym. Is they've lost 100 pounds, but they haven't built any muscle. They're not any healthier than they would, or than they were. There's one and only one way to lose weight, and that's called caloric deficit. You have to burn more calories than you take in, period. It's the only way that can possibly happen. But living in caloric deficit is not always the healthiest thing. So if you use the scale as your standard of whether you're winning this thing, scales are important, and they're a huge part of this thing. But I'm saying, if you're saying, I have to get to X weight, and that's the goal, it's not the entirety of the goal. It's an important part of the whole package. Is better yet is using the mirror. Is my body changing? Am I able to bound out of bed more easily? So in my opinion, it's not being ripped and it's not losing weight. It's this. I was in Peru one year, and I was at a restaurant, and I heard a musical ruckus occurring in a park nearby. And I walked over, and there were lots of people gathered around what looked like a hole in the ground. And I thought, what the heck is going on here? So I walked across the yard, or walked across the park and showed up and looked in, and it was this mega amphitheater. It was an amphitheater. It was about the size of this room, and it was about 4 levels deep, four steps deep. And then they had a drop-off with some more steps. And there were people dancing, people everywhere. I mean, there were probably 400 people in a space this size, all dancing together, and of all ages and races and body styles. And there was loud music playing, and I just thought, this is about the best life gets. Like there was something, I mean, some of you are such introverts that it freaks you out. You're like, I don't want to be in that anthill at all, no way. But they were filled with joy and life. And so when I say, what is the goal? The goal is not getting shredded and ripped so that you look great. The goal is not that the scale says a particular thing. The goal is that you're able to dance the dance. It means the life that God has for you, that he wants you to do, the things that he has equipped you to do, designed you to do, that your body works in such a way where you're capable. You're able to get out of bed and dance. And so we're going to talk about 3 things. We're going to talk about, first, fueling up. What happens if you put vegetable oil in this car? Not much, and your body is absolutely no different. There's something about nutrition. You are designed to work with fuel, And what happens if you take 85 octane fuel with ethanol and put this one on the course? Does he win that day? Does she win that day? No. She uses high octane fuel with nitrous injectors. I mean, there's this particular mix of fuel. They use stuff that we can't buy to make this thing run. There's particular fuel that will work but make you sluggish. There's particular fuel that will kind of get you through your day, and then there's fuel that will amp you up and allow you to rev the engines. And we're going to talk about that for just a second. I saw this book one time called You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty. I'm of the opinion that every time you go to the doctor on that entry form where they say, do you have high blood pressure? Do you have a history of cardiac problems in your family? Do you have HIV? Do you have this? Do you have that? They ought to say, how much water do you drink? Because virtually every possible problem you could have, whether it's migraines, whether it's achy joints, whether it's diabetes, whether it's the inability to lose weight, whatever the thing is, water helps. I know we hear you got to drink water, but it's something you should take seriously. It is a huge foundation of the fuel. And so I'm just today gonna throw out there some little stuff that I've learned over the years that I would teach my kids that I think will be helpful. And so it starts with water. It continues with you're going to pay the farmer now or the doctor later. We want cheap food because we want to save money, but you don't save money with cheap food. And this ties into a lot of societal problems, a lot of problems with gentrification, a lot of problems with slums and ghettos, low-income areas of town, and it gets into a lot of historic stuff to oppress people. These are important conversations we have about life and community as a whole, as a national whole. But on an individual level, what it means is spend what you can on good food. If it's a choice between a good salad with quality meat versus the Frito Bandito, the Frito Bandito may cost you 85 cents. The quality meal may cost you $8. It will be the best $8 you ever spent in your life. It's very important that you pay the farmer now and not the doctor later. You want to eat nutritious food, and so where do you find this nutritious food? You shop on the outside walls of the grocery store. I was thinking about it this weekend. When you walk into a grocery store, all the beautiful colors are lined up in a row on the right or the left, depending on whether you're going clockwise or counterclockwise. And then there's the yogurts and the dairies and the meats and so forth. And then as you move into the aisles, that's where the zombies walk. That's where you find the goldfish crackers and the Oreos and the microwavable TV dinners. And again, 80-20, 60-40, wherever you're at, I'm saying now start to spend more time on the outside aisles than you did on the inside. Start to look for nutrients, vitamins, minerals, healthy carbs, healthy fats, and fuel your body with them. And listen to grandma. And what I mean by listen to grandma is if grandma read the ingredients and wouldn't recognize methylchloroisothiazolinone, you probably should not put it in your body. Again, this is not a hard and fast rule. Scientists are smart. There's some good stuff out there that you can't read. But as a generality, grandma would recognize carrot as an ingredient and wouldn't recognize some of the wild 18-syllable words that you'll find in your banana Nestea shake, whatever. That was really dumb. Learn to read labels. Anybody know this one? The whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. It's reality. Sorry. Olive Garden is not helping you. There's something called the glycemic index, and the glycemic index has to do with how fast you metabolize carbs and ultimately how quickly it raises your blood sugar. And this causes all kinds of terrible things. It's related to diabetes and heart conditions and lung conditions and so forth. But ultimately, it also has to deal with anabolic state versus catabolic state. And I'm starting to fly here because I realize I have a lot to say in about 3 more minutes to say it. They call them simple carbs and slow-burning carbs. Slow-burning carbs are typically brown. Choose brown rice over white rice, brown bread over white bread, so forth. Never, ever, ever, if you can help it, eat white table sugar. There's other sweeteners out there that are better for you. And so the glycemic index is important. I'm going to jump off of that and just say the whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. And I've got nothing pithy to say here except avoid trans fats. I thought the trans are your fats, the sooner you're flat, but that was just stupid. So you avoid hydrogenated fats, which means they take a lot of fats and they introduce hydrogen into them so that they will remain solid at room temperature. And even as a visual, that's pretty nasty, isn't it? So avoid hydrogenated fats because they remain solid in your system too. Trans fats in general. So don't do the deep fried Twinkie. It's got the processed white sugar in it. It's got the trans fats in it. I'm not saying if you go to the fair you should never have a deep fried Twinkie, but if you've got a deep fried Twinkie problem, it's worth fighting. All right, let's fly. Inner beast mode, which means to move, and how you move is going to be different than how I move. You may enjoy hiking, you may enjoy tennis, you may enjoy swimming. I may not enjoy those things, but you need to find your mountain. You need to find the difficult thing that you can do that you can also enjoy. And for every person, that's going to be different. But it's something that gets your heart rate up, that you enjoy, that works you hard, and then practice progressive overload. I have no idea why this dude's shirt says bacon on it, but I like it. Bacon is like eggs. You read it, and some people say it's healthy, and some people don't, and I dismiss those that say it isn't. Progressive overload means that I bench press 150 pounds 8 times today. I'm going to bench press 150 pounds 10 times next week. And then I'm going to move to 165 pounds and bench it 4 times. And then I'm going to bench it 6 times. And then I'm going to bench it 8 times. Progressive overload allows you to push your body to new levels. And so whatever your thing is, if you play tennis, play at a comfortable level for a little while, but then try to amp that up a little bit. Try to work a little bit harder. Whether it's hiking, hike the extra mile eventually. Do something that not only you enjoy, but something that can get your heart rate up from 150 to 155 to 162. Obviously, there's a limit. You don't want to get to 200. That would be very dangerous, but you want to be pushing yourself. And then don't complain because they're so heavy. I've heard people say, I would lift weights, but they're so heavy. That's just insanity speaking. Resistance is important when it comes to your body. It's that last rep that micro tears the fibers in your muscles that allows the proteins to come in to grow the muscles. It's the last rep is kind of the only one that counts. It's the one that you can hardly even accomplish. That's the only one that really matters. And so God has built it into the system somehow that if you're climbing a mountain and you can just barely get there, you're pushing yourself further than you were yesterday, and that's good. So don't give up just because it's hard. There's 2 steps to get to 90. I've heard it said that walking gets you to 90, and I've read articles in scientific journals that say your hips and joint flexibility and balance get you to 90 years old. I'm going to embarrass Vicki a little bit. Vicki walks about 13,000 steps a day, and she's in about the best shape of anybody I know. Yeah, how many do you get on a typical day? 22,000 steps. I remember when I was logging my steps, to get 6,000 was pretty decent. 22,000 steps. There's something about walking that is something you can do most of your life. And obviously you could have physical reasons why you couldn't, but there's something about walking. And hips and joint flexibility are equivalent to longevity in this life. And there's not enough time to go into it, but work on those things. And I want to say that this is leg day 2. Leg day doesn't work without the rest that comes afterwards. Hiking the mountain doesn't work unless you feed your body afterwards and rest and allow your body to recoup and recover. So rest is a huge part of physical transformation and taking care of this temple that God has given you. I want to close by inviting Audette Johnson up. Audette, would you come up for a second? I told Audette that she was at the end of the service, and she said, "You're going to make me nervous for the whole time." And I said, "Yeah." Audette, you've lost a lot of weight of late. Tell us about that journey and your transformation. Come on up here if you would. Just tell us briefly about this transformation that's occurred in your life.
Well, first of all, I can say that I have tried every diet and exercise known to mankind. And as HL's been preaching over the last month or so about balance, don't go one way or the other. Don't go too extreme. Don't go, nothing where you're unhealthy. But this latest transformation was definitely something spiritual. A friend of mine, Chris, leads a Bible study on Wednesday nights, and he was going to talk about a particularly difficult subject and ask for prayer. So I said, I'll do one better. I'll do a Daniel fast. So out of that Daniel fast, I became a vegetarian, which if you know me at all, that's quite a miracle because I'm a carnivore. So, and I will say that fruits and vegetables are very important. You don't have to be a vegetarian, but incorporate that into your body. And as a nurse practitioner, I can tell you that's very important for your heart health. So if you can find a way to incorporate fruits and vegetables into your diet and some form of movement, you got this.
So you had a shift, and we're not up here, and you even mentioned it out loud, we're not up here to say everybody should be a vegetarian. And I hope I've made it very clear that I've even said out loud multiple times, what works for you is not what works for me. You got to find your thing. Odette's thing was to convert to vegetarianism, and it's made a huge transformation. How much weight have you lost at this point?
65 pounds.
How much easier is it to roll out of bed of a morning?
100%.
How much easier is it to walk to your car and carry your groceries and do life's activities and do the dance, so to speak?
Well, before I lost all the weight, I would have all of my groceries delivered. I didn't want to go up and down the steps. I'm going to the grocery on my own a whole lot more now.
So you feel better. I'm assuming with body transformation comes a sense of self-accomplishment and self-confidence that is kind of, you can't purchase elsewhere. And so the point we wanted to make, and the reason we wanted to bring Odette up here, is to say that sometimes a light bulb needs to go off. Sometimes you said you did a Daniel fast. Will you explain what a Daniel fast is real quick?
A Daniel fast is where Daniel didn't eat the king's meat. So if you want to do a Daniel fast, you just eat fruits and vegetables only. So it was interesting what came out of that. It wasn't just for the beneficiary of the fast, but it transformed me probably more than anything. So that's a way to fast. Like if you have diabetes and you can't just fast with water, then you can do a Daniel fast because you're sacrificing something.
So the point is, Odette was, you see the before and after here. This was Odette how long ago? A year ago. And something shifted. She started making changes. And now she's in a much better place. And it's fair to say you're more able to serve now than you were a year ago.
100%.
For sure. And that's the point. Odette, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. So my encouragement to you is to figure out, let's go back to that slide. There's this path in front of you where God wants you to serve and God wants you to be able to roll out of bed well of a day. And it doesn't mean that there aren't things like cancer or diabetes or Parkinson's or whatever it is in the world. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to be able to bounce out of bed, bound out of bed, and go feed people downtown every week. It does mean that wherever you're at, drinking more water will help. Eating nutritious food will help. Some kind of resistance, progressive overload will help. And I just want to encourage you to find your thing, whatever that thing is. Take it seriously and love God with heart, soul, mind, and strength.